Today's video is kindly sponsored by SONY, the at-home premier men's health clinic. Hey, 42 here. In February 2016, Jupiter single-handedly prevented one of the biggest bank robberies in history, saving the country of Bangladesh just shy of $1 billion in the process. As unlikely as that may sound, it really did happen. But to find out exactly how, I'm going to have to fill you in on a bit of a backstory first. Bear with me here, because this is going to get a lot more confusing before it starts making any sense. There's lots of men all over the world who probably feel that the older they get, the less motivation, strength, and overall drive they have. It's no shock that men's bodies change over time, and they often become less efficient in day-to-day life. This can be down to a number of factors, such as age, the environment, or even stress, and it's totally normal. And speaking personally, I've definitely noticed decreasing energy levels over recent years, which is why I'm really excited to introduce today's sponsor. SONY helps men to identify and address low testosterone, and then helps restore them to natural levels with clinically proven treatments. SONY uses real doctors, real science, and real FDA-approved methods to treat and optimize your hormone levels. Hormone optimization can have a huge impact on your life, from increasing muscle mass, decreasing body fat, improving focus, stabilizing your mood, and helping you with stress management. But don't take my word for it. After all, I'm not a medical expert. Although SONY Health is, and they'll be there with you every step of the way. So if you're ready to get back to your best self with a science-backed company that doesn't take shortcuts, then order SONY's easy-to-use at-home assessment today and take control of your health and your future. To get SONY's at-home testing and a doctor consultation for only $45, click the link in the description below or go to sonyhealth.com/42. If I was to ask you who the greatest golfer of all time was, who would you say? Tiger Woods? Jack Nicklaus? Arnold Palmer? All good guesses, but ultimately, you're wrong. Because the greatest golfer ever to fondle a 5-iron is none other than Kim Jong-il, former supreme leader of North Korea and father of the current incumbent Kim Jong-un. Don't believe me? Well, in 1994, Kim Jong-il shot a frankly astonishing 38 under par at the Pyongyang golf course just outside of North Korea's capital. This truly remarkable round is said to have included a birdie or better on every single hole and no fewer than 5 holes in one. For context, Tiger Woods has only managed 3 holes in one on the PGA Tour across his entire career. The scrub! What makes Kim Jong-il's incredible score all the more impressive is the fact that he achieved it the very first time he ever played golf. Imagine how good he'd have been if he'd practiced. What? You still don't believe me? Well, you don't have to take my word for it. The record-breaking round of golf was widely reported on North Korea's state-sponsored news channel. And if it was on the news, it must be true. I mean, why would they lie? Okay, so you don't need to tell me that this whole story is utter bullshit. Kim Jong-il has about as much claim to the title of golfing goat as Happy Gilmore. And yet, North Korean news channels really did report his record-breaking round across the country. That's a bit like BBC News claiming Boris Johnson shaved 6 seconds off Usain Bolt's 100-meter record whilst out for a walk in the garden in his pants. Thanks to mad stories like this one, Elton John-inspired nicknames, and frequent unflattering caricatures in some of the world's most widely read newspapers and magazines, many people view North Korea and its leadership as something of a joke. So much so that it can be easy to forget Kim Jong-un's Democratic People's Republic of Korea is one of the only 9 countries on Earth with a genuine nuclear arsenal. And it turns out it isn't just the nukes we need to worry about. Because whilst North Korea's love affair with weapons of mass destruction has been headlining news for some time now, what's rather less well known is the other military program the world's most secretive state has been working on for the past few years. North Korea is training an army of super soldiers. Not muscle-bound Schwarzenegger types in science fiction grade body armor, you understand? No. North Korea is training a cyber army. A vast regiment of hacking warriors it uses to lash out at its rivals from the safety of the Korean peninsula. And whilst this army, thought to include as many as 8,000 highly skilled hackers, is hidden beneath a cloak of secrecy, you'll probably have heard about some of their more famous exploits. In November 2014, North Korean hackers infiltrated SONY's computer systems ahead of the release of The Interview, a film about a CIA assassination plot against Kim Jong-un. Red skeletons appeared on the computer screens of SONY employees across the whole of the US, forcing the company to shut down its entire network for several days. But not before 5 unreleased SONY films were downloaded and released online, along with a raft of embarrassing private emails sent between senior staff. Then there is 2017's WannaCry ransomware crypto worm, also thought to be built by North Korean hackers, that affected more than 200,000 computers across 150 countries in the space of just 4 days. WannaCry was one of the most damaging and far-reaching cyber attacks in history, doing billions of dollars worth of damage to hundreds of public and private companies around the world, including the UK's National Health Service. But the thing is, North Korea is probably the last place you'd expect to find an elite army of hackers. For starters, it has the lowest internet penetration rate of any country on Earth. In the UK, around 97% of the population is online. In Nepal, it's 36%, and in Afghanistan, it's around 11%. Any guesses for North Korea? Allow me to fill you in. It's a smidge over 0%. Just a few thousand users with heavily restricted access in a population of 26 million. Which leads us to a rather obvious question. How can a nation that basically doesn't have the internet possess an army of hackers capable of wreaking havoc all over the world? In most countries, hacking is, like terrorism, murder, and poor queuing etiquette, frowned upon. That's why the vast majority of hackers are self-taught. You can't sign up to a university course that'll teach you how to craft the perfect phishing email or carry out a first-rate DDoS attack. At least, not in most countries. In North Korea, things are a little bit different. The country's brightest mathematicians are routinely plucked from the regular school system as young as 12 and taken to Pyongyang, the capital, where they're given intensive military-led training designed to turn them into world-class hackers. Many complete further training in Russia or China, but all are eventually sent out into the world to begin sowing as much online chaos as they can, usually based out of a country that, has the internet. Perhaps unsurprisingly, considering it's basically made up of highly trained geniuses, North Korea's state-sponsored cyber army has fast become an incredibly powerful tool for the regime, offering Kim Jong-un and friends a number of important benefits over traditional forms of warfare. For starters, cyber warfare is far cheaper than its conventional counterpart. As you probably already know, even a really good computer costs less than, say, an aircraft carrier. Digital offensives also come with the added benefit that they're far less likely to be met with retaliation. In recent years, we've seen government-sponsored hacks attempt to influence political campaigns, steal intellectual property from world-renowned universities, and spread misinformation designed to subtly shape public opinion. But unlike military offensives, these kind of cyber attacks are often both hard to prove and easy to deny, meaning the vast majority go unpunished. Retaliating to North Korea-sponsored cyber attacks is even more problematic. After all, it's hard to launch a cyber counter-offensive against a country that essentially doesn't have the internet. It's a bit like living with a poltergeist. It can terrorize you at will, but no matter how tough you may be, your best moves can't hurt it. Hacking isn't only seen as an offensive tool in North Korea either, it's also a financial one. You see, North Korea is one of the poorest countries on Earth, with as much as 60% of the population living below the poverty line. For a more visual representation of just how broke North Korea is, take a look at this satellite image of the Korean peninsula at night. That largely pitch black area you can see, that's North Korea. A country so poor it literally can't afford to keep the electricity on overnight. Thanks to its penchant for developing weapons of mass destruction and threatening to use them to blow the US into another dimension, North Korea is also one of the world's most heavily sanctioned countries, meaning there isn't a long list of nations it can trade with. In fact, there's hardly any at all. China accounts for more than 95% of North Korea's foreign trade. Hacking gives the regime a way to generate cash that no amount of sanctioning can disrupt. And according to a 2019 UN report, North Korea's cyber warriors have raked in some $2 billion for the regime through a vast array of hacks, both large and small. That's almost 10% of North Korea's entire GDP, generated through cybercrime alone. And it's here that we finally circle back around to Jupiter and the billion-dollar bank heist I mentioned at the start of this video. You see, back in 2016, a shady organization known as the LAZARUS Group, which according to the FBI is part of North Korea's state-sponsored hacking army, attempted one of the most audacious cyber heists in history. The hack was incredibly sophisticated, and it started when members of the LAZARUS Group infiltrated the computer network at the Central Bank of Bangladesh. Once inside, the hackers were patient. They kept to the digital shadows, and over a series of months penetrated deeper into the bank's computer systems, where they could observe how transfers at the bank were completed. Once they were confident they could recreate and execute believable fake transfers themselves, the team waited until the bank closed for the weekend before springing into action. Using what they'd learned over their months living as ghosts in the machine, the hackers created 35 fraudulent transfers totaling $951 million, all of which was to be withdrawn from the Bangladeshi government's account at the Federal Reserve Bank of New York and sent to random bank accounts across Asia. Incidentally, if you ever find yourself strolling past the Federal Reserve in Manhattan, you might like to know that you're about 9 meters away from the single largest store of gold held anywhere on Earth, including Fort Knox. Resting on bedrock about 5 stories down are 500,000 solid gold bars, worth well over $250 billion. Anyway, the LAZARUS Group's plan worked flawlessly. Almost. You see, one of the bank accounts the hackers were attempting to siphon the loot into was located on Jupiter Street in the Filipino city of Manila. There was nothing particularly interesting about this bank. or about Jupiter Street itself. But the presence of the word Jupiter on the transaction order tripped a digital alarm in the Federal Reserve's computer systems, freezing the payment. It's worth pointing out that none of this had absolutely anything to do with the Lazarus Group's hack. Jupiter was the name of an Iranian shipping company that fell under US sanctions. So, when that word showed up on a transaction order, it was automatically held back for review. And when an employee at the New York Federal Reserve took a closer look at the batch of orders, it soon became clear something was up. Not only was it extremely unlikely that Bangladesh would suddenly decide to pay close to $1 billion to random members of the public all over Asia, but the payment orders themselves were suspect, with some including formatting errors and spelling mistakes. The majority of the fraudulent transfers were eventually blocked, but 4 did get through, totaling $81 million. It's crazy to think that had the hackers chosen any other bank in Manila, a city of 1.8 million people and literally hundreds of banks, the hack would most likely have been a complete success. And North Korea would have had an extra $1 billion to spend on some shiny new ICBMs. Yeah, let's all say a prayer of thanks to Zeus that they didn't. 20 years ago, cyber warfare essentially didn't exist. Today, it's one of the biggest threats facing our society. It's long been said that the pen is mightier than the sword, but I'm starting to think a really smart person sitting at a computer with a reliable internet connection trumps them both. Thanks for watching. Good news, you can now pre-order my new book, Bread and Circuses, What Did the Romans Ever Do for Us? It's a wild and witty journey through 1,000 years of unexpected Roman history, told in a refreshing way and packed full of incredible and unbelievable stories. Copies are selling out fast, so pre-order yours today to lock it in. Thank you.